I think also we also a lot of people fail to realize how impactful our food choices can be for allowing us to take a stance and take control of our beliefs of like having a positive impact on the environment, reducing the suffering of animals if that's what you're into, or even just taking control of your own health. And I think it's easy, like with any consumable item, whether it's your phone or your clothes, and especially with your food, it's easy to just be a passive consumer and not think about it. Yeah. And it's easy to just like, there's so much noise coming at me. I'm just going to turn that off and just continue living kind of in this passive state of consumption. And I think that's why like the nutrition industry can be so dry and so controversial and confusing and overwhelming. And so I think more and more like nutrition professionals and just passionate innovators and stuff need to come up and really focus on the communication aspect of it, not just the information aspect of it.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Sweet.
So another good analogy that I was just talking to Jun Yoon about last night was if you're an alien civilization and you're looking at Earth, are you going to consume someone like Brad Pitt, sexy, slim, strong,
very successful,
or are you going to consume someone that eats at the Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas that weighs over 350 so they get free meals there?
Yeah.
You don't want to take on that person's body type. Rather exact. So the idea of eating things that are healthy for you can even be brought to an interstellar, intergalactic sort of level of understanding. Okay, so maybe we talk a bit about how we think we maximize our success with science communication and why hopefully other people tuning in can maybe take some of these strategies, leverage them themselves, or work with scientists themselves on maximizing the success of communication. Some that obviously that you deploy while you do your podcasts and while we do our shows and everything is we aim to incorporate comedy and an entertainment aspect into science communication. When people laugh, they retain information better.
Yes, I agree, and I think that's why Paul connected us, because it's like I think that's such a important cornerstone in what we do, and it's like in a lot of ways, a lot of what we do can just be kind of orbiting that idea because. I think when you meld entertainment and comedy with rich scientific knowledge and education, I mean, because it's like I always think back to like when I was in school, in middle school or high school, like you have that one teacher that's super dry and it's like some really boring subject and you completely tune out. But then you have that like super fun teacher that's like just a fucking boss and is like super funny and like you just like love him or her. They're super funny. Even if it's like boring, uninteresting subject to you, you remember that.
Yep.
It just like saturates your brain juices in like just good like rich humor, because that's something that's just it's just a universal human language is comedy and laughing.
Exactly.
And it just releases hormones and just really great neurochemicals that promote learning. And so I've found that with what I do at Thought for Food and just with talking to people, it's like, I think it enhances the experience in so many ways. And I think that it can be, what's so cool about it is it can be used in intergalactic stellar, like science, and it can be used in nutrition, it can be used in physics, it can be used in everything.
In everything.
And so that's what it's all about, I think.
Maximizing efficiency in communication, especially of complex concepts. It's so important. It's things like comedy, things like hitting people's emotions. When you give analogies, you're typically making people, you're helping them relate with the content more.
Yeah.
Versus when you're trying to explain it and you're not using metaphors or analogies or anything that relates with people is going to hit them better. Anything that is super complex and you yourself know it only targets 1% of the population that knows what you're talking about, and you're trying to enrich the other 99%, think about that. Yeah. You're not maximizing your efficiency. So other things that we do are we, like we said, we hit people's emotions. We try and tell a story.
Yeah.
Is really important. So when
and relate to people, like, and just be real. I think, just come down to people's levels. And I think that one mistake a lot of educators and scientists and stuff make is they try to be up here and kind of look down on the audience or on their pupils or whatever. And I think that just kind of creates this like expert-student relationship that can kind of dilute that experience in a lot of ways.
Definitely. And then there's something beautiful about a teacher-student relationship. But then typically a teacher won't, if they're letting their ego rise too much, they won't realize that the students will actually have things to teach the teacher.
Yeah.
And so that's probably one of the biggest things.
It's more of a dynamic sort of like relationship, I think.
And a teacher, in most cases, will also not know how to ask thought-provoking questions to the students so that they can empathize and learn from their perspective, which is really crucial piece in trying to help your scientific perspective get to people. And so with, for example, with storytelling, what I think works really well is when you're trying to talk about something, like let's take nutrition for an example. When you're explaining things like where we came from as a civilization, when you're talking about nutrition, I think people tend to get that a little bit more. When you explain to them that only now today, in today's civilization, do we have such ubiquity in food that we eat so often, because before, thousands of years ago, we didn't eat so often.
Yeah.
And we were able to intermittently fast between meals. Days at a time. And we have, even still today, you are a very thin and fit person. You are. And I am too. I got some chubs on me. And this chubs, though, is enough. I mean, this is enough to keep you going.
Even the leanest people have high amounts of body fat that theoretically can sustain you for a pretty good period of time.
Pretty good period of time. It's say it's 3 weeks, but meditators have went on for longer. And when we stretch our bodies, it's part of our homeostatic capacity is to stretch our bodies in these directions and then have our body practice coming back to an equilibrium. So when you don't eat for a couple days, you end up actually burning fat, has a higher concentration of ATP, just energy, than glucose does, which is what we're constantly burning all day. And so because of that, then you're actually feeling pretty good. You're still going and feeling strong and working your thing. And then eventually later, after some fasting, you might feel a little tired and stuff. Well, have a couple nuts and stuff. You'll notice that your stomach is so small. You even just like a couple nuts, you can't eat anywhere near as much as you used to be able to eat. And so that is actually a great way to storytell to people, is to get them to understand the path of civilization through history, to get to understand what it would actually feel like when you do fast for a little bit, why it made sense in the past, why if we went and experienced it today, why it could affect us well, and maybe we could share that with other people. So that's been something that we've embodied in our practice.
Yeah, and I think just, being real with people and also just being curious, I think that's another really important piece of science, obviously. I mean, that's what science is built on, is curiosity. Correct. And so I think so many people get really wedded to their ways, whether it's with nutrition or with any climate science, for example, and they become very dogmatic and unwilling to sort of see the other side, and we've talked about that earlier.
Correct.
But just be curious. If you're watching this, just think more critically about food and nutrition, and interplanetary travel and the things that you're interested in.
Let's talk about that a little more. Not the interplanetary stuff, but let's talk about being curious more.
Yeah.
Because when you bring this up, I really want to address the importance of the curiosity and the critical thinking, because like you said, we get dogmatic, we get indoctrinated into our own biases and our philosophies that we typically don't even hear out the other side. We just say that we do, and then we are canceling them out completely. We're literally waiting for our time to speak so that we can try and teach them. So what I typically do is refer to Tony Robbins' quote, "The quality of your life is the quality of your questions." And so if you're able to ask someone that's teaching you something about their perspective further questions about what they're saying, you're going to end up learning from them about why they think the way they do. So when they say, I eat meat meat's no problem for me. I enjoy chicken. It's my favorite kind of meal. Then you can ask them more questions about that and say, oh, how often are you eating chicken? Maybe once a day. Okay, and so you eat chicken because you primarily like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the taste. And it's like, okay, do you think about where the chicken is sourced from and stuff before you buy it? And then now you're getting more into the conversation of, is the person thinking about that? And you're asking them questions. You're not just going, well, did you know that 1,000,000 chickens per hour?
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Yes.
Like, I'm right. You're wrong. You know,
Yes.
and that's I think very important for people to whatever diet camp. It could be vegan. It could be paleo. It could be whatever the other kind of various dietary camps or things like that. That's something that should be much more ubiquitous. Is asking questions and just having like a real adult conversation and just being able to like to put your ego at the door and not be so like wedded to your own like inherent beliefs, because we have to remember that those beliefs came from somewhere. We all are different, but we all are trying to like reach the same goal. We all want to be healthier for the most part. We all want to reduce suffering for the most part. We all want to live in a healthy, thriving world for the most part. And so if we can just kind of remember that, the kind of very basic tenet of this, that like we have to kind of come to find common ground. And that's what I try to do with Thought for Food, is like, let's just ease into it. Let's just like, no one can argue with eating more plants. Just go eat some more plants. Like have a salad, but like, don't just like immediately go vegan, like unless you're willing to do that or whatever. But, and I just think that
the conversation is such a key. Just
the conversation. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because it's like I think in today's world, with social media and just the constant stimulus of everything, like we lose in a lot of ways that what we're doing right now, just that really like dynamic, like rich, where you just like, it's like palpable, the conversation. So
yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that little rant, but
no, you're killing it. Is this? I just want to see. Did anyone give us any questions on the good old FB? We got a hi guys. Hey back at you, Fernando. So we got no questions on on the Facebook. We are 20 minutes in. Do we have any maybe closing thoughts? Maybe for me, a closing thought is that I care so much about making these conversations more widespread, and nutrition's a really important one. We do it so often, like we were talking about, but also just more thought-provoking conversations about what is the future going to look like, not just regarding food, but regarding access to things like water and energy, education, healthcare. How can we empower people across the world to care more about discussing these things, not necessarily pushing our beliefs onto people, but just talking to them about it and working together? Obviously, you're familiar with the set of questions, the list on simulation, and that list is, these are the things that I care so much about, is having these conversations. It's not pushing sets of beliefs, but just bringing really intelligent people into the conversation and then having them go and disseminate further to audiences, and having even people that have never heard of what a neuroprosthetic is to go and start talking about what that is. Do I want to bring, and that's how they can leapfrog too. If they're talking about neuroprosthetics when we talked about it for 20 years, but they start talking about it today at the same intelligence level that we're talking about it, do you see how they basically leapfrog those 20 years of development? And so we can really empower people around the world to people that latch on to things like blockchain today at the same level that we're at. They leapfrog like 20 years of discussion and technology. So that's kind of what I really care about. Let's have these conversations more.
Yeah, and I think that kind of comes back to, for me, it's like, just really bathing ourselves in knowledge, and like, good knowledge, not like
bathing ourselves in it.
Like just submersing ourselves in that like bathtub of knowledge. Like just wash your hair with it, get that science shampoo running down. Like and not knowledge of like what the Kardashians are doing, or what like a lot of times like what your like social network is doing. Like I think that stuff's great, but also like can be very distracting.
Definitely.
And something I'm going to do, I think, like next week, is just take a complete social media fast for a week, and just focus on like actually reading articles and like books and stuff like that, and just focusing on kind of reigniting that relationship. And so I think if we can all spend a little bit more time during all of our very busy and hectic days just learning more, I think is just going to be the key to the future and key to everything, obviously. But
Yeah.
we have so much content and information at our disposal that I think we have to be warriors of sifting through that and
Yep.
and like finding that one path that like in a lot of ways like kind of unlocks our own knowledge purpose or whatever you want to call it, you know. And so I think that's what science communication is all about, I think, is
Parsing the noise, finding the signal, helping people better understand the signal, because you've created a stronger signal for people to understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been epic.
It has been epic. I want to keep going for hours, but
We'll do it again. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Jackson, you rock.
Bye. See ya.
All right, that's done. And then...
It's good shit, man.
Oh, that one ended too, huh?